All right, mostly my interest in all of this is structural, in the sense of how do we so order our common lives to make it possible for us to do what needs to be done in a way that the least amount of blood is shed, metaphorically and literally. One of my friends talks about the centuries when the church was still the church and the gutters ran with blood. In the Episcopal Church, some people feel we've gotten a little too close to those bad old days in recent years, and perhaps things will begin to change in that regard. There are lots and lots and lots of different definitions of authority depending on what field of study you're looking at. I think the simplest thing to say is that it's the ability, one's ability to get somebody else to do what one wants them to do. Now, that's really broad and very vague, and that's on purpose. Because we need to identify a lot of different things. I think the first thing that is generally said, needs to be said, is that there's a difference between authority and coercion, and there's a difference between coercion and force. Physical force is, of course, one way of getting people to do something. Coercion, generally speaking, is understood to be getting people to do things not by use of physical force, but by use of threat, kind of, shall we say, persuasion that is pretty irresistible. If you do not do this, I will kill you, is a good example of coercion. And on that kind of definition, we don't have the use of force or of coercion very much, coercion in the Episcopal Church, because of our basic understanding of what the church is and how it's structured. Sort of the most that we can ever say to anybody is, if you continue to do X, or if you do not do Y, we will ask you to leave. Ask you to leave. Perhaps we will excommunicate you, although we tend not to do that. We might depose you, and so on. That's not a very high level of coercion, and particularly in a system where people can leave whether you ask them to or not. So, now I'm teaching seminary as I do. I would say that where the greatest areas of coercion, if there are any at all, and they're not very great on the grand scale of such things, where they exist are A, in the ordination process, and B, in church finances. The power of the dollar is, of course, huge. The ordination process, to be fairly blunt, if I want to be ordained and you are the standing committee, you have something I want and you can withhold it for whatever seems good and sufficient reason to you, and so I would be well advised to pay attention to what it is that you want from me, because otherwise I'm not going to get what I want. That's all terribly untheological, isn't it? But certainly any of us who have been through the ordination process, or Cynthia, our condolences for going through it, know that it feels that there's a lot of authority being, sort of pressed down on you from above, structurally. But mostly all we've got is persuasion. We have to try and persuade each other to do various things, to think various ways, and so on. And we have very little recourse to any kind of instruments of persuasion, such as the law, outside